We are live. This is How to CPCU. How's it going, Heather?
It's going great, Matt. Glad to be here
Awesome.
today.
Awesome. The world is still intact. Not everything is on fire. Maybe a couple of things, but not everything. We are joined by an extra special guest today. Before I get to that, this is How to CPCU. We come at you live every single Wednesday night at 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 Central. We are basically here to tell you about the CPCU Society, other CPCUs that are out there in the world kind of making things happen, different aspects of being a CPCU that you can take advantage of to increase your professional life, find some new friends, and everything in between. So it's a lot of good stuff. So if you're watching this live, we have some special giveaways. So definitely check in the comments and let us know that you're watching, or ask a question for our special guest. We have some Insurance Nerds books to give away on this live cast. But that being said, speak of the devil, we have Superman himself. Or are you wearing the Superman shirt, or do you have the unicorn shirt? It looks like you got the Superman shirt going. Awesome. We have in the flesh, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Tony Canas. How's it going?
I am doing well. Didn't sleep much last night because you had the bright idea of doing this after the day after the election. But I am doing very well right now. Thank you.
I could have done it at like 7 o'clock in the morning if you prefer.
Yeah, that would have been a fun one for real.
So really quickly, what we have you in the house to talk about is basically the crux of it is a blog post that you did. I got to look for a date here on it. I'm actually trying to share my screen.
You will never find a date in any of our blog posts on Insurance Nerds. That's by design. We aim to write things that are timeless rather than timely.
Evergreen content, right?
Correct.
So it is entitled 10 Things to Do When You Finish Your CPCU, or when you finish CPCU. This was, I think, really impactful for a ton of people. Was this, I forget, was this kind of written from your own personal beats as a new CPCU, Tony?
Probably. And I don't think that I wrote it as a new CPCU. I wrote it, I got mine in 2011, and Insurance Nerds didn't open until like 2014. And this one is probably from about 2016.
Okay.
So I had been involved with the society for a while before I wrote this. By the way, quick. I would say, and I since I'm not an admin, I don't get to see how many people are joining us live. But I would say that roughly every 10 minutes, choose your favorite comment, and we'll give that person whichever one of the Insurance Nerds book they choose. So I'd say about
that's a good point
during the hour, right?
Yeah, so we've got maybe like 5 or 6 people on right now live. If you want to comment, send a comment through, or a question for Tony related to either the topic that we're talking about or just a question in general, and we'll make sure to pull up what we feel are, well, I mean, we'll pull up as many questions as we want, but we can pick some comments and questions in order to do some giveaways here, and throw it up on the screen for you. So, yeah, so. I mean, what kind of went through your mind, Tony, when you first got your CPCU?
So, basically, I started at Farm Bureau of Iowa, and Farm Bureau of Iowa did a fantastic job during my orientation and training. And I was in the call center, claims call center, and orientation for the whole company goes to orientation together. It's every Tuesday. For I want to say like 8 weeks in a row, and it doesn't matter what role you've been hired for. You're there every Tuesday for your first 8 weeks with the company, 6 or 8 weeks, and they really teach you how Farm Bureau is different from other insurance companies. They teach you about the policies, like you actually go through the policy language, and they teach you how to grow within the industry, and they really kind of hit home the do your designations, get CPCU if you want to grow. It's a great way to grow within the industry. And I did it on faith. I finished my CPCU. I got AIC and AINS at Farm Bureau, and those got me hired at Nationwide with a significant raise. and off the call center. So basically from call center to like entry level inside claims, but not call center. And at Nationwide, I did my CPCU. I finished my CPCU having never met an actual CPCU. I had no idea that I did it on faith, on faith that what they had told me was that it was a career maker. But the first time I met another CPCU in person was with CPCU in hand when I went to the Iowa CPCU Society chapter meeting.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah. Did you have a similar experience, Heather? Had you never met another CPCU, or no? You had a mentor basically that had a CPCU, right?
Gosh, no. Obviously, I work for State Farm, and so CPCU was that.
It's the CPCU factory over there.
It was like
you can't throw a rock without
hitting several CPCUs. But a funny story about that, I worked for a team manager because I started in the claims world as well. I worked for a team manager for a really long time. When I say really long, like that would have been 3 years of my career. But he had worked on his CPCU for like, I don't know, like 18 years or something. And then after I got mine, I was like, dude, okay, come on. And he didn't even use Hawaii as the motivation to get his, he ended up going to New Orleans is what he ended up doing.
I'm on board for that. That's a good trade-off in my mind.
What was hilarious?
Was very similar.
Yeah, what was hilarious
go ahead, finish the story.
This manager was actually from New Orleans. Okay, he was from New Orleans, Louisiana, and he was like, "Well, it's kind of like going home," So it was just an interesting thing. But yeah, I was surrounded by people who were all into designations and everything, and so there was that community, but the chapter that I was surrounded around with was really small, actually, for the area that we were in. So when I started out, it was with the Northeastern Oklahoma chapter, and we had, everybody had to have a job. I mean, like you were in and you're at president in like a week and a half, basically, because they need people, so active members, there's a difference between having CPCUs and then having active CPCUs around you as well. A lot of people had that designation hanging on the wall, but they weren't really using it. So
mine was similar in that the one person I knew who was almost a CPCU was my director, my boss's boss at Farm Bureau. Dan Behrens, and at that time, and I believe to this day, Dan Behrens is one CPCU, is 540, one CPCU test short of CPCU. What happened is he was scheduled to take it on 9/11/2001. So he didn't get to take it, and then he got promoted to the director role he wanted, and then he never got back to it.
Oh my goodness.
So that's the closest that I had been to a CPCU before I actually got mine. And I had no idea that the society, the local meetings in Iowa, I had no idea they were open to candidate members.
Well, bonus points for anybody out there who gets a hold of Dan Behrens and tells him now that 540 is an online exam and that it's shorter and all of that, and gets him on the train.
That's funny. We should put a bounty on his head. That would be awesome.
I have gone to every annual meeting since I got mine looking for him.
Yeah.
And he still hasn't today.
So we have our first question. So my apologies if I slaughter your name. So Aravind Raman, okay, or Raman, is asking, where do you see CPCU folks? Where do they need to focus in terms of changes in the auto industry? So personal and commercial. I think this is like right in the wheelhouse of what is Root even around? Did Root go down, or Root's still around? Right?
Root just IPO, dude.
Okay. So Root's around.
IPO
okay.
Last week for $750 million.
Yeah, that reminds me. I have to call them up for a loan. I need some money. But that being said, so that's in that vein, right? So InsurTech is starting to, at the very least, kind of like the maybe the assigned risk or the low end of the insurance market. I mean, it's been taking market share for a while, right? That's why Allstate bought insurance, right? Yeah. So I mean, in terms of CPCUs and how they kind of have to adapt to this space, I mean, what would you think, Tony? I mean, is it just a matter of kind of like boning up on InsurTech trends or what?
So personally, I am really biased on this one. I did my CPCU in personal lines, and I wish that I had done it in commercial lines. I generally tell people commercial lines is a better career today and going forward. So I would highly recommend to almost anybody to focus on commercial lines. Personal lines is getting more and more automated and more commoditized. And yeah, Bill Wilson was not a commodity. It isn't, but it's sold like one.
Yeah.
And so I would say focus all you can on commercial auto or commercial in general, and not only that, but I think long term, if you're 25 right now, I think by the time you retire, a lot of auto will have become fleet owned. What's it called? Self-driving cars.
Yeah. Yeah. And shameless plug here. So I just got done between 3 and 4 o'clock with Sell Like a CPCU that we do through the Agents and Brokers Interest Group. And Precious Norman Walton works at an agency. She oversees the sales staff there for an agency that mostly does, and they have a little insured techie tilt to them. They mostly do motor truck cargo. Okay. So my point of advice would be, regardless of whether you go into personal or commercial, have a niche, right? Like the commercial auto space or even the personal auto space, have a niche that you're really decent at, right? Because there are some aspects of auto that are universal, and then there are other aspects of auto that are super crazy, like, or like get into auto from the standpoint of like, I know the auto in this niche, and I also know the other stuff, right? So like self-drive, look, you're going to have to know cyber, right? Like there's going to have to be a cyber component to self-drive, right? You have any thoughts on that one, Heather?
Yeah.
Aravind, Message Matter or myself, which of the insurance books you want? You get the first one of the evening. Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say this is an interesting position, especially for carriers today, because I work for an insurer that's mainly personal. We dabble in the commercial lines business, but being a large mutual insurer, it's an interesting place for them to be, to try to see how they can pivot, because we know that the trends are there, that less and less people are owning autos and driving their own vehicles all the time too, so that commercial space is just skyrocketed in the past several years with the takeoff of the gig economy and all of the other aspects that support that. So I would say don't be afraid to diversify. And that's a suggestion, not just for you as CPCU folks, but for all of you out there that might be in control of those types of decisions at carriers too, as well, because that marketplace is getting ready to just explode.
I would guess that every auto-heavy carrier is actively trying to diversify.
Yep.
100%, especially personal lines auto.
Yep.
Yeah. And you know what? It's just kind of that natural evolution, I think, of the industry, where they'll anticipate what's coming. I think the other dynamic is, say you do already work in the auto space for a carrier or a broker or whatever you do, look for those opportunities to morph with the company. Okay, don't paint yourself into a corner, especially if you're a CPCU. To kind of like pull back to your blog post a little bit, you mentioned like numbers 10 and 11 are, shake the alumni network. If you have a special expertise in auto, or you're looking to get into auto in a way that's going to be productive into the future, make sure to kind of tap into that alumni network and figure out who can maybe kind of like guide you or help you along the way. And number 11 is apply for a job, right? So Root just IPO'd. There's a number of other insurtechs out there where, yeah, they need programmers and stuff like that. I think they will, obviously need some people with insurance acumen somewhere along the line in order to be able to write insurance.
They've always needed them. Now they know that they need them.
Yes.
For the first 4 years, that they probably didn't need them.
Yes. Yeah. And you actually have, again, another shameless plug here. The Insurance Nerd Slack channel. If you're not in Insurance Nerd Slack, there is actually a job board on the Insurance Nerd Slack channel. And how can people find that, Tony?
InsuranceSlack.com, and you can sign up for a Slack channel. And
awesome.
There is a lot to the Slack channel. There's a lot of Seth, thank you for joining. Although I don't know if you get a book for that comment, because not
yes, Seth. We need a question to further the conversation. But
although I agree with you that commercialize the way to go.
Yeah,
you're a runner-up for now.
Yes, and I'll just throw a shameless plug out here as well, because this was just talked about on the roadshow that happened a little earlier today with the past presidents of the CPCU Society. Jill McCook talked about a story about how she had gone and joined an interest group that was outside of what her wheelhouse was. She's an underwriting. Well, she's like, I'm going to hop over into this loss control space and learn a ton about things that I never had any knowledge about. So stretch yourself as a CPCU. You got that CPCU, go find something that you don't know something about and stretch yourself. And the interest groups are a fantastic way to do that.
And I'll tell you what, I think I've said this before in the podcast, but the interest groups were the part of the society that I had the hardest time getting my head around. So I immediately understood kind of the local chapter and the value of the local chapter, and I kind of immediately understood the value of the national and the networking at the national level. But the interest groups took me a long time to really get my head around how to make the most out of them, how to join them, how to the difference between just joining them to receive the newsletter or joining them to be part of the people creating the stuff. I think that we haven't done a great job of explaining the how the interest groups work. Or I am slow as heck. One of the two.
No, that's a good point. I think Heather, you and I had already talked about it. This is definitely something that we want to focus on and spotlight, not just all of the interest groups kind of like in one shot. I think we would love to bring on representatives from each one of the interest groups onto the show in order to kind of spotlight each one of them. And to your point, Tony, I think the interest groups, I don't know if it's just maybe the society doesn't do a good job of marketing them, or the individual interest groups don't do a good job of marketing them. I would say anyone who is on Twitter, Heather, what's the Claims IG Twitter feed?
Well, it's super fun. It's like claims_IG_CPCUs is what it is. But we, the Claims IG is all over Twitter all of the time, and that's because we wanted to connect that community of people in a different way. And so we took it as a charge, and that's what we do with it. We just use it to leverage, to push content, to talk about the Inter-Risk conference, to talk about, leadership summit, and just to really have some fun too, because we certainly have some fun with our social media accounts.
I would say anyone who wants a master class on how should I put it, like cheeky, kind of like tongue-in-cheek, like Twitter posts, definitely look up the Claims IG Twitter feed, because I pretty much know this. Heather, you're like the only one who runs it, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So we have another comment from Mandy. Mandy was saying, my company supported me obtaining the CPCU, but they don't seem to care that she has it now. What can I do in the society to help me grow? I'm going to let you run with this one, Tony.
So Mandy, first of all, you get a book. So message Matter me, letting us know which of the insurance books you want, because you absolutely deserve one. Second of all, I'd love to have a one-on-one conversation. Grab some time and chat with Tony, and let's have the conversation if you think that would be valuable. But basically, this is a common mistake. This is a common mistake. A lot of carriers pay for CPCU, and maybe they don't push it anymore. Maybe they did like Allied Insurance was huge into CPCU like 15 years ago. So they got bought by Nationwide, which wasn't a big CPCU company, and so they still support CPCU, but they don't push it. And once you get it, it really depends on your manager whether they value it or not. I think that happens at a lot of companies for whatever reason. Quite honestly, it's their loss. Because once you have your CPCU, what I always tell new designees is if you are currently underemployed, which chances are you are, if you got CPCU early in your career, you're gonna end up getting a couple of promotions. They might not happen at your company, right? Like I told Kison, right? You're an underwriting assistant now. I guarantee you're gonna be an underwriter in the next year. I can't guarantee it'll be at your company. So basically, the best way to make the most of your CPCU, make sure that within your company they know that you have it, and you know, if you're actually in the office, if there is such a thing anymore, or next year, like put a designation there, put the diploma on in your cubicle, put it next to your signature, start applying for some jobs internally, see if you get those interviews. But if you're there for 18 months post CPCU and you're not even getting the interviews, maybe it's time to move on to the next company that will actually appreciate it, because I guarantee many companies appreciate it. And oftentimes it is more of a manager by manager kind of thing rather than company wide. Very few companies are like company wide CPCU fans. So it takes finding the right manager. But now the question is, what can I do in the society to help me grow? If you've got a local chapter, definitely get involved. If it's a big local chapter, they have tons of great content, tons of great networking. If it's a small local chapter, go get your leadership experience by becoming part of the chapter board very quickly. And depending on which area of the company you're interested in, join an interest group. Do those two things for a year or two, and I guarantee you'll see a lot of growth because of the society. And if you can make it to one of the national events, whether it's InterRisk or even the Leadership Summit or Scale, which is a lot cheaper generally at a cheaper city, that will just skyrocket your networking within the society, and again, that'll help you grow. And like I said at the beginning, grab some time and chat with Tony, and I'll help you kind of plot a strategy.
Yeah. For anyone who doesn't know Tony's day job, surprise, Tony is not a full-time CPCU advocate or insurance nerds advocate. He does have another day job. He is someone that can, like I come from Jersey, right? Like everyone's got to have a guy, okay? And when you're trying to find a job, right? Tony's one of those guys, okay? That's the guy you got to know, okay?
So because of the way that staffing works in the U.S., I can't bill you to find you a job, okay? I can only bill the company to find them talent. With that said, my favorite part of the job is helping people find their next step. So my dream is that, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, or whatever, anywhere in PNC, when somebody loses a job, decides that the job's just not for them anymore, right? The moment you wake up in the morning and you're like, I don't feel like going to work anymore, right? Like I really need a change, and you're a PNC person, my goal is the first thing you think, or the first thing your network says, is you got to give Tony a call.
Yeah.
So I love that role. I love helping people find their. Okay, let's see.
So I don't think Beach Cottage qualifies for a book so much, but I feel your pain, because I've definitely gotten onto the Insurance Nerd Slack before and responded to certain comments and questions that were extremely outdated. And the person gets back to me and they're like, huh?
What? Matt, do you actually know who Beach Cottage is?
I don't. It's probably someone that we both know who like.
Okay. No,
you can tell me offline if you want.
Yeah, I don't know. No idea.
So here's another one. I think this might be deserving of a book.
Oh, yeah.
Rufus fan asked, do you think that getting involved in multiple interest groups at the same time would be a good idea, or just focusing on one?
So I agree that he or she gets a book. So please message Matt or myself letting us know which book and where to mail it. But I'll let you guys answer this one because like I said, I've never been super active in the interest groups.
Go ahead, Heather, run with it.
Yeah, I think it depends on what your goal is with the interest groups. Okay, if you're wanting to explore and just kind of dabble around, then get involved in several of them and find your niche, find your place where you fit in. I jumped into claims because at the time I was in a claims role, and that's probably not the best advice because I wasn't stretching myself really whenever I jumped into it. But what I do in that interest group was a complete stretch for me after I got into it. If you're looking for, maybe a leadership opportunity, find something that's going to stretch you as well. And the reason why I say that is because those interest groups need voices that are not within their niche. They need the voices of underwriters in the claims interest group. And why? Because those two worlds have to work together all the time in the industry. So I would suggest just whatever it is that your goal is with it, if it's leadership development, if it's leadership experience, gravitate towards something that is going to stretch you in that. And if it's just a dabble around, join several of them and then figure out from there which one that you really want to plug into and be a part of. But yeah, obviously Matt and I are going to do like a whole special on the interest groups and bring in several of the interest group leaders to talk about this in the future. So that's a plug for you guys to join us at a later date.
Yes, and that's a reminder. Anyone who's watching us live, or if you do watch the recorded version, please, if you watch it on YouTube, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you get a notice when we do go live. Again, every single Wednesday at 5:30 Eastern. If you're watching this on Facebook, please hit up the New Jersey Facebook page and follow it. And you'll get a notification there. And then also follow us on the New Jersey Twitter feed. We're going to work in the future to try and get this out on more feeds. So I just have to figure out how to make that work. But in the meantime, we're kind of coordinating this through the New Jersey chapter feeds. I would say the interest group question, that's a good question. I would say, look, the what you get out of it is what you put into it. Okay. Yeah. If you think you're just going to kind of be a fly on the wall, that's fine for like the first meeting or whatever that you get to in order to kind of, get the lay of the land. But in terms of whether or not you're actually going to get any value out of it, look, you gotta it's not a job. I mean, it's a volunteer organization, but at the same time, it's no fun to just sit there and kind of watch. I don't know about you, Tony, or you, Heather, but I'm an avid people watcher. Like when I go to the airport, I love kind of seeing life happen around me from time to time. But I know at some point, I want to jump into the pool, right?
Well,
go ahead.
It's not a job. But that's the beauty of
that's
it,
true. Yeah.
Right? That's the beauty of it in several ways. Number one, maybe you have a boring job that's not challenging you, and you just got your CPCU. This is your chance to do something interesting and something meaningful. And number two, maybe you're fighting for that manager level role, and you keep interviewing for it, and they keep telling you don't have any leadership experience, right? Yeah. This is the place to get your leadership experience that you can then bring back to the job. So also if you break it, right, you won't get fired for it. so take advantage. This is a great place to practice your leadership skills, to grow them. So I basically I'm saying basically the same thing that Heather said earlier. This is the interest groups and the society in general is a great place to stretch yourself and really grow.
Yeah. If you can lead volunteers, right? If you can wrangle those cats that you're not paying any money to, okay, you can lead anyone. You might even be able to run for elected office. I'm not sure. I haven't tested that one yet, but I'm pretty sure. All right. Here's one. I don't know. I'm blocking out Tony because Matthew Maxwell wrote basically an essay. But let's see. Before I get Tony's assertion on this one, the company I was working for when I began my insurance career was very supportive, pursuing the designation. It was more prudent for me to pursue two designations that more appropriately fit my role. So that's a good point before embarking on the CPCU. However, being actively involved in pursuing my CPCU designation while also already having the other two designations was a very strong factor that led to my current employer taking a chance on me and bringing me on board. They were also very instrumental, and Matt got cut off. Maybe he lost internet connection in the middle of his soliloquy here, but I can tell you that.
How long it can be.
Yeah,
So,
I can tell you that Matt is like a fantastic poster child for the CPCU and getting involved. I think you knew Matt before you met him in New Orleans, right, Tony?
A couple of things. Number one, Matt definitely gets a book. Although I know for a fact that Matt is the only human being on earth that owns autographed copies of every Insurance Nerd's book. So. Another Insurance Nerds book won't do you any good. So Matt, let me know which book and to whom you want to send. So basically, we will gift one of the Insurance Nerds book to a person of your choice in your name. Just let us know who, because you've got all of them. I know that. Also, the fact that his comment was blocking me, I think is really funny, because yeah. Basically, Matt messaged me years ago. I probably 2013. Well, he was working through his CPCU, and we exchanged messages on Facebook for every few months for years. And then finally, I last year he showed up at the meeting for the first time in New Orleans, and I got off the plane and immediately messaged him, "Where are you at?" And I got I dropped my stuff at the Airbnb, grabbed an Uber to go meet him. He happened to be at the I believe the Claims Interest Group dinner, so I crashed the dinner just to say hi and get my selfie with him and finally meet him in person. So I'm 5'7". I had no idea that he's like 6'3". So he towers over me basically. So the fact that his comment was covering up my picture is actually very representative of like the reality of Matthew Maxwell and myself. Yeah, he's a fantastic CPCU, and if you're watching this, you should probably follow him, both on LinkedIn and on Facebook. As he gets more time someday, he leads a very, very busy life. But as he gets some time someday, he'll be able to publish more videos and stuff. And his stuff is always fantastic.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Just like a clear example of what a great CPCU is.
Yep.
That's an interesting thought. Did you go straight for the CPCU, Heather, or did you have something before you went for the CPCU?
I had finished the AIC and like AINS basically before I went for my CPCU. So, but remember, CPCU was that 10-year journey for me, Matt.
Yeah, that's true. That's interesting. So I kind of have a little bit of a different path. I actually had the gauntlet laid down in front of me. I worked in personal lines at Prudential, selling life insurance and personal home and auto. And when I was brought on by the firm that eventually brought me on, the woman who hired me, she was a CPCU. So I immediately met a CPCU, and she compelled me to get my CPCU. But she basically said, look, you can't spell commercial insurance. You need to do some training, right? Like I started as a technical assistant, in the department, but she wasn't hiring me to be a technical assistant. She was hiring me to be, 2, 3, 4 steps into the future, right? But she laid down the CPCU as the gauntlet. She was like, look, if you want to get ahead in this organization, you have to do something. Like you need a credential or you need to accomplish something. The CPCU was my avenue there. To any of the insurance brokers that might watch this, a lot of you get hired without any credentials and they have you go in the direction of the ARM. That's fine. I have my ARM as well. It helps. Use that as an avenue to get to the CPCU, because I can tell you right now, I can negotiate coverage around, circles around other brokers that are out there.
I've got a bit of a funny story when it comes to like the order. So at Farm Bureau of Iowa, they during the interview, they told us this is a call center position. We don't want you to be here for more than a couple of years. We want you to grow into the rest of the company. You have 2 years to get your AIC and your AINS. They're basically requirements. And if you want to be a manager, you probably want your CPCU too. So I was already doing my MBA. So I just kind of like started AIC and INS. I was already studying every day. I just kind of like added on top of the MBA stuff, and it just got done because I already had the study habit, right? So anyway, I got my AIC and my INS, I want to say in like 5-6 months total. And it's one of those companies where you need supervisor approval in order to get a designation. So of course my supervisor happily approved AIC and INS. And Farm Bureau allows you to post for other jobs 6 months in, not a year in. So I got my AIC, my INS. I applied for a different job outside of the call center. All of a sudden, I wasn't her favorite anymore, right? Because she knew that I was looking to leave too quickly. So when I asked for approval for CPCU 500, she said no. She said that I had already used too much of the educational budget for the department, and she wouldn't sign off on it. And that's a big part of the reason that I ended up accepting the job with Nationwide. And so yeah, that's how it went for me basically. And as soon as I got to Nationwide, in fact, during the interview, I said, "Will you pay for CPCU, and what kind of approval do I need to do it?" And so yeah, they lost me over that. They probably would have lost me anyway because it's such a small company, but they lost me over that. And I still remember them fondly. It was just kind of but my advice in general when it comes to the order is if you are committed to CPCU, then the fastest way to get CPCU is to get CPCU. Because otherwise what you're doing is you're replacing one big test with 3 smaller ones. You're better off just doing the one big one. Now, if you've got supervisors who won't approve it yet, or if you need to build your self-confidence, right? If you need a win, right? If it's one of those like it's going to take me 2.5 years to do CPCU, I could really use a couple of short-term wins on the way there. So then yeah, I could get a couple of the small designations on the way. But the fastest way to do CPCU is just to do CPCU if you're committed and you have approval from the company.
I would totally agree with that. It's like a momentum game, right? Like just from both of your backstories, it's one of those things where the momentum is so important to keep going. Yep. It's so important, right? Like just so people understand, like the younger people that might watch this feed, the older folks that have their CPCU, they had to take 10 exams, okay? And every single one of those exams was handwritten, all right? So whatever benchmark you have to get over in order to get your CPCU, okay, it's nothing compared to what other folks used to have to do, okay? So just remember that. And the other element is like just kind of like get into a routine, right? Like I know we're supposed to be talking about like what happens after the CPCU, but this also kind of applies, like, following it through. Get into a routine, right? So like me, it was Barnes and Noble, Saturday, 5-6 hours every single Saturday. They had my caffeine waiting for me at the counter when I showed up every single Saturday, and I went straight through. And I got a little bit of credit, but I did 7 of my CPCU exams in a row, and then my one elective was the ARM. So I had 2 other ARM exams in order to finish my ARM, and then I had 2 other ARM specialties that I took after that. I literally did them all the way in a row. And one of the points that you make, Tony, is like you need a support system, right? And then you also need to like take a break. Okay, you could take a break in the middle, but make sure it's a scheduled break. It's not like an indefinite break. Okay, or if you're on that train, like just ride that train as long as it goes. Okay, and then when you're done at the end of that train, like actually have some kind of celebratory thing, right? Like did you have like a trip or something that you did at the end?
Talk about the importance of momentum. I did 26 tests in 26 months, roughly the 15th of every month.
Wow.
And then I stopped.
And you haven't taken another one since, have you?
I haven't taken one in like 8 months. It's like I got them all in a hurry. But once you stop, it's so hard to. Hey, Terrence. It's so hard. So Terrence, not a great question. But I am very tempted to say that you do get a book. largely because of being a fantastic CPCU. Terrence and Matthew Maxwell both were part of this really interesting generation of CPCUs who showed up already connected, already knowing everybody. Terrence and Matthew Maxwell had become super active on Twitter and on the CPCU candidates group on Facebook, encouraging others after they finished theirs, even before they went to New Orleans. And there's such, to this day, they continue to be such great presences within CPCU. So Terrence, let me know which of the books you want.
Aravind said he's been using his time at home. I think this is a good one to study, for the CPCU. So if you work from home now, you have some disposable time, especially if you don't have kids, right? So that's a good take home.
Fantastic use of your former commute time.
Yes, and to your point, Terrence did a fantastic job of being proactive about getting out there and making those connections, and that's really kind of the test here. Like the CPCU is kind of like the Heather. Would you call it kind of like the ticket to dance, right? Like it gets you in the door, okay?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it doesn't get you the dance. Okay, you still have to you still have to work the room. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, there's some elements there where, you're just not automatically kind of like this super duper insurance pro, right? I'm like, you got to kind of like network and take advantage of the opportunities.
Some people never benefit from it. Okay. So some people get their CPCU and they go to the annual meeting, and they don't go to a single session or event. They just go party in Hawaii or wherever. My girlfriend is an example. And they never connect with the society, and they don't get that extra benefit. Other people go to the conference and they're naturally introverts, and they don't manage to get themselves out of the shell. And again, they never get the extra benefit. They never connect with the society. Some people, my best friend, a perfect example, got his CPCU, and I've seen this a million times, got his CPCU, changed companies because of CPCU. He got a better job very quickly before the annual meeting, so he never made it to the annual meeting and never engaged with the society, right? And those people miss out on the multiplier effect. So don't let that be you, basically. And you might only get one shot, right? You might only have employer support for one into risk, chances are. Go there, engage, and we'll kind of teach you how to get support for future years. But you have to engage.
That's the one argument for. Look, last year's annual meeting was amazing because the setting of New Orleans was great from the standpoint of there was like entertainment, but there was also energy at the venue, right? Like I didn't go to Hawaii, but the sense that I got from Hawaii was tons of people didn't do what you just said, Tony. Like tons of people didn't take advantage of the fact that you just had a super concentration of incredible insurance professionals in one place. Okay, it was paradise, and they decided to prioritize, the beach and stuff like that ahead of the other professional piece. Look, you can do both, okay, but don't prioritize the recreation over the professional, networking.
Hawaii is a really interesting one because I remained involved from in 2012, 13, 14, 15. In order to have a good excuse to go to Hawaii. And I thought that Hawaii would be my last one, right? But by remaining involved all those years, I fell in love with it. And by the time Hawaii came around, Hawaii was a dessert, not the main plate, right? I had realized that remaining involved was much more valuable than just a Hawaii trip. And I came back from Hawaii and thought about it, and I'm like, that was not the best conference I've been to. And the reason it isn't is there were so many people there that there were enough every day at the conference. So I didn't notice the few thousand people that didn't go to a single event because there were enough there. It was a bigger than normal crowd. The problem I found is it's so big and so spread out that it's rare to see somebody twice. So in the normal size conference, what happens is you see the same people day 2, day 3, and you really kind of have that reconnection. And by the time you leave, it's just kind of like you become connected, right? That doesn't happen in a giant Hawaii one because you don't see the same people over and over and over. So I'm glad that Hawaii is off the list.
Yeah.
I know that that's not
Yeah.
the reason that it's off the list, but I'm glad that it is, because it's not, and it's so polarized in that it kills both the year before and the year after, because everybody concentrates on Hawaii, right? So you end up with 2,000, 1,000, 10,000, right? We're
Yeah.
much healthier as a society, having a more even flow coming in each year.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And having been somebody that conferred in Hawaii, don't get me wrong, like I enjoyed the Hawaii conference because I engaged with it, but I've enjoyed conferences after that so much more because the connection was there. You're right. You didn't run into the same people all the time, and you didn't get the opportunities, it felt like, because everybody was just like scattered all over the place all the time. So I San Diego was incredible. New Orleans had this whole other level of energy with the new designees that came in, and it absolutely blew my mind, to watch that and to see how people could really make connections at that conference versus what happened in Hawaii. And don't get me wrong, like that was going to be the trip of our life, and we spent a lot of extra time in Hawaii and everything while we were there. But at the same time, it was just a different kind of conference. Don't get me wrong, good content, great speakers, everything else was there. Just that community feel seemed like it was a little bit missing there, but didn't matter anyway, because that's what really got me super engaged in the CPCU society, because of my story with Mike Caselny.
Yeah. So I'm going to flip this comment / question to you, Heather. Blue Water, I don't know who Blue Water is, but asked about recommendations for finding an accountability partner. For you, was that your supervisor, or did you have someone that you were kind of like your partner in crime that you were running with?
What was kind of funny about it, and I know I told the story before that it was a 10-year journey for me, and I became the CPCU cheerleader for my friends, within my company that I wanted to get to Hawaii with. And we all became accountability partners to each other. We celebrated our wins, we celebrated our losses together. I didn't pass 540 the first time that I took it. And we shared, we networked with each other. We almost had like a study community in between us, where we would say, okay, how did you get to that answer on this question on that test, and ended up dragging 10 people to Hawaii with me, because we would constantly encourage each other. Like I would post a picture on Facebook of the beach in Hawaii, and was like tagging everybody in it. You're gonna make it. We're gonna be on this beach together and everything. So yes, recommendations now, if you want to find an accountability partner to be able to get your CPCU, reach out to people who are CPCUs. The society is not some mythical organization that you cannot connect with before you become a CPCU. There's actually this thing called candidate membership that you can get. It's half the cost to be able to be a candidate member of the CPCU society. And then you get plugged into people that might be in your local chapter who can mentor you, who can bring you along the road. And anybody that's here on this cast right now, and anybody who joins any of our interest group road shows, anything like that at all, they are going to be willing to partner with you and help you to get through the journey.
That's an awesome point.
Mike, yeah, couldn't have said it better. Blue Water, message one of us. Let us know which insurance book you want and where to send it to. Because
my question to you, Tony, is: do you need a partner in crime or like an accountability partner once you're done with your CPCU to run with? I love this question.
So interestingly, that's not one of the things that I put on this article from 3 or 4 years ago. It's a very interesting point. It would, so like myself, I when you invited me to come on the show today, I'm a weird one to come on this particular show because I don't hold any position within the society. I'm not active in any interest group. I'm not active in any local chapter. I've been a member of several local chapters. I'm a paid up member of whatever local chapter I'm at. Happens to be Atlanta right now. I haven't gone through the seats of the different chapters because I've moved around so much. So it's right. I'm more a groupie and a mascot at CPCU than anything else. Right. I'm the only person
CPCU
at
roadie.
I'm the only person at Leadership Summit that has no meetings he has to be at. Right. My group. So would it have been different had I gotten an accountability partner at that time? So Adam Hagerud in the Iowa chapter is the one that got me involved in Iowa and that kind of like told me how to get nationwide to continue to sponsor the CPCU trips. He shared the secret sauce, right? If we had this idea of the accountability partner and we had kept each other accountable for continuing involvement, I would have probably been significantly more involved in the formal roles within the society. Absolutely. So I do think that it's an interesting concept that it should probably be rolled out to like centrally to the like when you start in CPCU, they should like almost assign you one or you get what I'm saying? Like we should figure out a way to do that. It's a fantastic idea, Matt. I believe it was Matt that brought it up.
Yeah, well, so like mentorship is always a good thing, right? So mentorship can always help and maybe be kind of like a de facto, accountability partner. I think there's also an element of something that we'll probably end up talking about at some point on the Sell Like a CPCU channel is, how do you get the most out of like a networking event, right? How do you get the most out of being in a room with a bunch of different people who are either prospects for sales or they're, potential professional connections that can like help you along the way. I always like the analogy of you always want home base. Okay. So you have home base and then you kind of like branch out from there. And home base is that one person that is always going to be at, these events, and maybe they're not kind of like the nexus of some like extreme network of people that are at these events, because those people are tough to get to. You kind of have to like weave your way through that network of people. But you have to have one person, right? So that that the next time you go to that event, whether it's a chapter event or whether it's a leadership summit or something like that, that pretty dependably they're probably going to be there, right? And you touch base with home base. Hey, how's it going? You doing good? How's everything? And then you kind of like tag team, right? You can go off on your own. You can find new connections. And the best like excuse to like get to know someone new is to introduce them to someone new. Right. Like, so It's like you get to name drop, you get to broker connections, but you need home base. You need that one person. If you get someone like you, Tony, who's kind of like home base, that's always like a good check-in because again, you've got a lot of other connections. So if it's someone who's kind of like a wallflower or they're passive or it's their first time, then be like, hey, Tony, do you know that person over there? And you might know them or you might not know them, but you might know someone else that you could like connect through or something like that. Or, I mean, you, me, Heather, like we're always like, no, I don't know that person. Let's go meet them.
Let's go meet them.
Exactly. Right. And so that's another thing that I think is a big deal with, one of your pointers here is you're looking for, start attending some of the society meetings, whether it be the national meetings or whether it be the local chapter meetings in order to meet people. That kind of thing really kind of builds that relationship with not just the organization, but the individuals that are in there. You get a sense of that culture, do you have anything to add to that? I mean, you had said that you've moved around, Tony, like, so you've been in a bunch of different chapters. You've also presented at a bunch of different chapters. I mean, how has that played out for you?
The chapters are so very different from each other. It is very funny. But they tend to fall into two main groups. There is the large chapters, which are hard to get involved in, but have great content and great networking. and there's the small chapters where you show up and you walk out as the vice president. They both can be wonderful in different ways. And my experience has been basically that I have never gone to a chapter either as a speaker or as an attendee and not benefited from it. It's always been beneficial.
Yeah.
So yeah, go to your local chapter. Like at the very least, go to your local chapter a few times. And right now during the however much longer we're stuck at home with COVID, or trying to avoid COVID, Mike Kosomi is the one that pointed it out. Like right now, you can go to the events at a bunch of different, right? I've done I think 3 or 4 days now, right? This year, not as a speaker, just as an attendee, and it's so great to be able to just choose the event that looks interesting.
Do you want me to tee this up for you, Heather?
Oh yeah. No, I was gonna say, Tony, I do agree that getting involved in a large chapter can feel overwhelming. Okay, and now that I belong to the largest chapter in the world, in Central Illinois, it can feel overwhelming, but those chapters actually, they need leaders all the time. They need people who want to be involved all the time, because while you have this large membership that shows up at meetings and enjoys the networking and is part of that, the willingness to hop in and be a part of the committees and to be a part of I-Day structuring and all those types of things sometimes is a little more reservation, because folks are like, oh my gosh, this is just too much for me to do, or I did that 5 years ago, I don't want to do it again. So just know that if you're interested in being a part of something, I've been a part of that chapter now for like 2.5 years, and I'm the secretary now, and I'm in succession for the presidency here in a couple of years. So there are opportunities. You just have to plug yourself in and put your hand up and say, hey, I want to be a part of this, and I'd really love to join. And here's where I think I can plug in and help out. And that's my challenge to everybody on the phone right now. It is, I believe it's our duty as CPCUs to engage. Okay, it truly is, because we got to give back. We got to give back to everything.
Definitely, it's definitely possible to and totally doable to get in the line at a large chapter. It's just a long line. So it went for me in Iowa. I became the chapter photographer, and the next year I was about to take over the new designee chair. And really get on in line for the presidency when I moved to Ohio. But it is definitely doable to get involved with the big chapters. And Heather, the biggest thing that and as we're running out of time, you said we have a duty to pay back. And I'm surprised that nobody's brought up point number 9, which I think is the most important point in the whole article. Now that I look at it, 4 years after I wrote it, point number 9. Truly, I guarantee the biggest benefit you'll get out of CPCU is changing some lives. If you start around your company, around your community, around wherever, telling everybody about CPCU and what it's done for your career, and you get a bunch of people to do CPCU, and then it'll do the same for their careers, you're gonna grow your network like crazy. And if you think that networking at CPCU is good, it's even better when a bunch of the people are thankful to you for getting them involved. So the number one thing you can do for your career after getting CPCU is that point number 9. I don't think that I would have been aware of that back when I wrote the article.
Yeah.
One thing that actually came up for me recently was someone asked me kind of why I'm involved in this stuff, right? And I don't derive any kind of income off of it or anything like that. The gentleman who was my mentor at my former employer, he was near the end of his career, and he was thinking about legacy, right? And kind of what stamp or what mark you leave on the world when you leave, whether it be retirement or when you kind of take your last breath on the planet. And that really left a lasting mark on me. And I don't want to wait until I'm 60 years old to think about my legacy. I would rather build my legacy, piecemeal over time and help people out and it be my network and kind of things that I can contribute that aren't necessarily immediately, revenue generators or something that puts money in my back pocket. And so that's also a huge element of being part of the society, is that idea that you're a part of something that's bigger than just you as an individual. But at the same time, you're able to occupy a space where you have some flexibility, some ability to, spread your wings, explore, and then maybe even take that organization to the next level and make a huge positive impact, that kind of comes along with it. So, yeah. I mean, is that something you think about, Heather? Are you a legacy person?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that, legacy means more than financial wealth and the other things that you leave behind. It's the mark that you make on people's lives. And so, Tony, you're right. The point that you made in that article is the most important point about what to do with your CPCU. It truly is ticket to the dance, the passport. It's not just a piece of paper hanging on your wall. It is a way that you can make a mark with a group of people
I think we
who
lost Heather.
routine day of their
No, we got that.
lives, and in an industry, people who we work in an industry where it's world changing. The world, the world doesn't go around without insurance, and we change people's lives through the type of work that we do. As a CPCU, you can give back to a community of people in so many different ways. Just pick something that's your pleasure and that gets you excited about being a part of this group. And there's a way to do that in the CPCU society.
Most definitely.
100%.
So we're over an hour here. I think we could talk for probably another 6 hours, give or take. Tony,
Easy.
What was that Zoom room during the Inter-Risk conference? What was the time frame on that? 22 hours.
22 hours, yeah. 21 before I collapsed, and Matt kept it for another hour.
Matt took it home.
According to the stats on my Zoom account, I collapsed an hour before. Yeah. If thank you guys for having me and for doing this. This is fantastic. If anybody who want a book, send me an email at tcanas@jacobsonline.com. Let me know which book and where to send it, and we'll get it on its way. Awesome. And yeah, great job that you guys are doing on this show. Last week you called Mike Kay a titan of the industry, and you said we'll have another titan next week. I am not a titan of insurance, but I am a evangelizer for CPCU and a giant fanatic for the industry. And the invite's open for anybody. If you're in insurance and you want to talk about your career because you're frustrated or whatever, chatwithtony.com. It's free, and I'll give you my very biased opinion on what you should do to grow your career. I've had a few hundred people at this point, and a lot of them have seen significant career growth despite my advice. So anyway, it's one of my favorite things that I do.
And subscribe to Insurance Nerds. Go to Insurance Nerds. What is it? insnerds.com.
insnerds.com.
Yes, yeah. Subscribe for the email list. Every single day you'll get blogs and stuff like that in your email box. Totally worth it. So that's all I got. You got anything else, Heather?
Nope. Thanks, everybody.
Another
Have
one
a great
in the
evening.
books. Again, join us next Wednesday, 5:30, and we'll see you later.